which I'm skeptical he would be able to do.
Yeah, they actually did an episode of Mythbusters. It turns out you cannot build a cannon out of bamboo and sulfur.
Yeah, not possible.
This episode is Arena. And in just a sec, we're going to show a picture, I think, of the Gorn, and you're going to look at it, and you may go, oh, it's that episode, okay. And then you may close the video, because, well, it's like this half-hour-long, poorly choreographed fight sequence, followed by a really repetitive chase sequence, followed by a really spectacularly poorly choreographed fight sequence, and that's the episode. But it is kind of a famous episode. It's parodied a lot. It manages to not be an improvement on the short story that it's based on, just a classic, golden age sci-fi short story, which apparently is because they didn't realize that they were basing it on it until they had already written the script, and then went back and realized that it was exactly the same as the short story, except worse.
Full disclosure, I didn't really pay attention during this episode because it became really clear this was not an episode worth paying attention to. So something happens, they're in space, there's this other alien species, and then all of a sudden they realize, hey, that they went onto this planet where they thought there were going to be lots of Starfleet people, I think, maybe. But then it turns out that the Gorn, or whatever alien species he is, has murdered all of them. And so Kirk finds that wrong. And so he goes after them, even though everyone's like, hey, he's gone, whatever, what's done is done. And he's like, no, I must avenge them. And then he tries to avenge them, and then this other alien species is like, we know everything. They're have some weird name
Metreon.
The Metreon say, hey, kids, stop your fighting, and holds them down, doesn't let their spaceships move, and they take one from each, Captain Kirk and this Gorn guy, who looks kind of like a shorter, fatter, less intimidating Godzilla, and they stick him on a planet, and they said, there are weapons here if you can figure out how to make them, and say duel to the death, and then whoever loses will destroy that ship, and because we're above violence, unlike you guys, so you guys go figure it out.
Trelane is a young alien who appears as an adult, and who is fascinated by and approves of Kirk's penchant for violence. Whereas the Metreon is an old alien that looks young, that chooses to appear young, and claims, anyway, to hate Kirk's penchant for violence.
But then does this gladiator
that's
thing,
not a gladiatorial fight.
Alright, yeah, you're so above it. Sure. It's not the point. This episode is extremely boring. You learn nothing. There's very little creativity. I think we need to move on to another episode to review.
Well, that's it for this week, but tune in next week for Tomorrow is Yesterday. If you can parse that sentence, where the Gorn is like,
I'm going to run away now.